You see, I think for most people, the thing that gives most joy is learning about something.
Yeah,
is satisfying a curiosity. That's where most real pleasure comes from.
Right.
And the greater part of that pleasure of discovery takes place before you start to shoot the film.
Right.
During the course of it, you make some very interesting discoveries in a very different level. I mean, it's a much more visceral pleasure because it's taking you moment by moment and it's surprising you, and you're much less in control of what's happening. But in essence, you're giving out, you're scooping yourself out of all that stuff that you tried to gorge yourself on beforehand. And at the end of it, you feel, and I'm sure Martin feels the same way, tremendously depleted.
Oh, yeah.
And the only analogy I've ever found that vaguely kind of seemed to fit for me was the idea of leaving a field lying fallow because you just can't grow anything in it anymore.
Listen, if I feel it, then I feel it. It's just like, because all it is emotion and character, and it's someone that's opening up that doesn't want to open up. Do you know what I mean? It's like when someone said to me, like, crying makes it's heartbreaking, but seeing someone trying not to cry is even worse. Do you know what I mean? So it's that kind of like, I'm not even happy that I'm crying. I hate this emotion. And it's just like, but I have to give it. So that's there has to be some conflict there.
The work becomes an end in itself, and I think that's also true of the, if you compare that fever to the fever of prospecting, that those guys that thought they knew what they were after, which is the vast mansion on the Pacific coast, by the time they had accumulated enough wealth to build that pyramid for themselves, the work was actually an end in itself. The fever was the thing that they lived for.
You are your backstory. If I am my backstory, you're not aware of your backstory. It's just you are that. So that's the facts. You kind of layer on the facts, and so your backstory is your decisions you make. The backstory is how you choose to say your backstory, and I may in order to say a certain line a certain way, I go, why does this person do that, and create a backstory to justify that line. I'm using who I am to show you who I'm not. So it's that. So you kind of are finding elements of yourself that you connect with in order to show who you are not. Because you're not in that environment, you haven't made that decision, you don't come from that place, you're not speaking that way. And then how I kind of see it is that your character lives in what you say about yourself or what someone says about you.
Well, so often because you're making so many decisions every day, but most of them, if things are going well, in Martin's case, they're for the most part conscious decisions, and if things are going well for me, for the most part, they take place at some other level. So you have no sense of control for the most part of those decisions that are being made nonetheless.
I think my job is to listen, and not to hear, but to actually listen. When you listen, your cells change. If you listen, if you had an idea, that's another layer of the like drafting process, essentially. Kind of go, all right, cool. How you're adding the emotion, and are you present to what that person is giving you?
When things are working right, you feel yourself irresistibly drawn into the orbit of a hitherto unknown world. So the question mark it's kind of a false question because it's already asked too late. The decisions are kind of taken away from you, which is a blessing, really, because the whole notion that you kind of create a body out of bits of old lumber and a few memories and this kind of like a bric-a-brac shop of emotional
wolf dust.
If that's the truth of it, I don't want to know that that's the truth. I prefer to kid myself that there's some kind of mystery.
Yeah.